last lesson we left off after finishing 1E. This first bit is 1E. Okay, so the 4 examples we did here is exercise 1E. Then I gave you a way to remember the signs. Okay, I haven't explained to you why this is the case, but I'm going to do it as we're solving the problems. So this is now an intro into exercise 1F. So after I've gone through the theory for 1E, 1F, that means you now can do exercise 1E, exercise 1F. Whatever you don't finish in class, that becomes homework. Okay, does that make sense? Good? All right, here we go. So we're going to now do some problems for 1F. So flip over the page from your notes. Here are some examples of 1F fluency skills. So fluency meaning bare minimum, what do they want at year 8 level? That you can add and subtract negative numbers. What's the difference between 1F and 1E? 1F has 2 signs. Can you see that? Plus, minus, plus, minus. This one only has 1 sign, but this has 2 signs. Fraser? I got one last spare. That was my last copy. All right. So exercise 1F has 2 signs, whereas 1E doesn't. 1E actually looks more like D. That question D there. So here are some examples of 1E. So 1E would be something like negative 11 plus 5. It could be something like negative 5 minus 1. That is 11E. Okay, because they're not trying to confuse you with the extra signs. Whereas over here, this gets confusing for a lot of students when you add on a negative or you subtract a negative. That's why the notes from last session, I told you that if you have 2 operations going, so you've got a plus and negative, or plus a positive, and then minus a negative, or minus a positive, if the signs are the same, you can change it to plus. These 2 signs are the same, so they're both plus. These 2 signs are, oops, sorry, not that one. This one. These 2 are the same. These 2 are different. So when the signs are different, we can say it's the same thing as subtraction. Now I'm going to show you the logic to this because I don't want you to just memorize mathematics as if it's some magical thing that I'm telling you. It's actually very logical. So here's the example. Say you currently have $10 in your bank account, right? So $10 is what you have. That's credit, yeah? When you plus, just like anything in life, if you add more to it, you're getting more or less of that item. More or less? More, logically. So this is a gaining concept. This means gain. That's an operation. That tells you whether you're gaining or you're losing. This, on the other hand, is what students confuse. Students think this is minus. It's not. This actually, the name for it is actually a negative. It's very different. So what they're saying there, and I'm going to show you on a calculator because you guys don't, some of you don't realize that you actually have it on your calculator. You know these green calculators? Yes, very good. If you have a look, I'm going to show you. See that blue button? This one says divide times subtract plus. Those are operations. Those are things you're doing to the numbers. But notice on the very bottom here, next to the dot or the decimal point, there's a bracket and a little hyphen. That's the symbol for negative. Negative is not minus. Negative is a direction. Okay, it's telling you what is that value. So, what is this actually saying? This is saying you've got $10 in your bank account. You're going to gain more. You're going to gain something. But what are you gaining? You're gaining -3. -3 is the value that you have. And -3 means debt. What you just gained is you got $10 in your pocket and I said, you know what you won? You won $3 in debt. Imagine that. Imagine if you inherited, I don't know, family inheritance. And then the lawyer comes to you and says, guess what? You're gaining this inheritance. You're like, yes. And they're like, you got -$1 million now. See, that's not good. That means you now owe $1 million, right? So that's why $10 in your pocket, and I say you're gaining, that's debt. That's not a minus sign, that's a debt. That's the value of it. So it's not just $3, it's debt of $3. That's why overall you had $10 to begin with. But then I tell you now that you owe $3 to whatever it is. It might be like you subscribe to Netflix, $3 a month. So then in that month, your $10 in your bank account, you gained less 3. That's why it's 7. Very good, Rory. And that's why if you're losing money and not gaining, well, then the plus a debt is the same thing as subtracting. That's why they say plus minus is a minus, because you're losing. You're not gaining. This is actually a lose. You're losing money. You're not gaining money. That's the logic. So it's plus a negative. Okay, well, a lot of students say it's plus minus minus minus. Wrong. It already tells me that they learned it in a very wrong way. That's why kids memorize things. Mathematics is all memorizing, but when you think about it, how I'm explaining it, doesn't it make sense? You're gaining debt, so of course you're losing money. So overall, you're losing. So if you're losing, it's subtracting. It's a minus. That's why we say plus a positive, notice the language I'm saying, plus positive value means you gain more. Plus a negative, which means debt, that's the same thing as subtracting. You're losing. Now, this is the one that most students generally have a confusion about. Why is it that minus a negative ends up being a plus? Well, think about it this way. This is a minus a negative. You got $4 in your bank account. Now, $4 in your bank account minus. When you say that operation minus, are you gaining or are you losing? Losing. So here I should be losing money, right? Or losing something. But what is this? This -2 actually represents debt. So let's think about a scenario. How does this work? You got $4 right now. Let's say you owe me $2 because last time you borrowed $2 from me to go buy lunch. And then I see you in the yard. I'm like, hey, husband, do you remember that $2 you owe me? And it's like, oh yeah? Yeah, $4 right now in your pocket. You're about to go to the canteen. I'm like, hey, husband, do you remember that $2 I lent to you on Monday? You're like, yeah. And then I say this to him. I say, forget about it. I'm going to cancel it. It's like, don't worry about it. I'm going to give it. Like, just don't worry about that debt. See, that's what this means. This means you had $4 in your pocket. Husband had $4. And I said to him, hey, you remember that $2 that you need to pay me? That you owe me? I was like, cancel it. Don't worry about it. Remove it. Remove the debt. That's what this means. Remove debt. So if you remove debt, this $2 that eventually he makes again, he doesn't have to give it to me. He gets to keep that $2 once he makes it. That's why overall in his pocket, he gets $6 because he doesn't owe me $2 anymore. I came to him and I said, don't worry, cancel that debt. That's what this minus a negative means. Not a memorizing thing that students do, because that's how they all learn. They just go minus, minus is plus, plus is plus is plus. I'm like, great, what does it mean? Give me a scenario. And they're like, I have no idea. So what's the point of doing maths if you can't even use it, if you don't even understand it? You see what I mean? So that's the difference between understanding and reasoning versus fluency. See, fluency is just memorizing this process and how to do it. Most of you train here first, and then I'm trying to break it apart so you remember it. Because if you understand it, you remember it better. Yeah? So plussing debt, you're overall losing. Removing debt, well, you're overall gaining. That's the logic to it. Okay, so this is gain. Does that make sense so far? Hands up if that made sense to you. All right, well done. Okay, so let's do this one now. So this question here, this is now -3. So for those who are beginning with this exercise, this is 1F, which is meant to be harder than 1E. Same thing. If it helps you draw a number line, I like to put a 0 in the center. And then I say, okay, so at the moment, you have -3, which means you don't have money. You owe money at the moment. You might have used the credit card and you got $3. So -3, is it on the left side of the 0 or the right side of the 0? Left. So I'm over here. That's where I'm at. That's where your current bank account sits. Then I say, you're going to gain. Like, you know what? I know you're in debt. You already spent $3. And I'm like, you know what? You're going to gain another thing. You're going to gain debt. You're going to owe another $5. So this is like you spending $3 for lunch on a roll, and then you went the next day and you went, you know what? I don't have money. I'm going to borrow money again. I'm going to borrow $5 to buy a roll and a drink. So now, in total, how much do you actually owe? 8. Because I'm losing. So think about it. In terms of direction, I said plus. Yes, it sounds like I'm gaining. Because I'm gaining a debt. I'm actually not gaining. I'm now losing. So in other words, this is the same thing as saying you start off at -3, but because you're gaining debt, you're actually losing. It's not overall, it's a plus. Negative means you're losing. So I'm losing more $5. I'm losing another 5. So overall, so from -3, when you minus, which direction should I be going, left or right? Left. So I go further left. How much more do I go left by? I go left by 5 because I'm losing more money. So from 3, which I already lost, I'm losing another 5. And you can count that. You can do hops. You can do 1 hop. So I'm losing 1. That's now -4. I lose 2. That's now -5. I lose 3. That's now -6. I lose 4. It's now -7. And then I lose 5. That's now -8. So I know overall I lost $3 buying a roll one day. And then I lose another $5. So I'll draw an arrow so you can see. You lost $3. Sorry, the other way. $3 for buying a roll on a Monday. And then you lose another 5. Buying a roll plus a drink. So overall, you've lost $3 and $5, or you spent $3 and $5. So therefore, you spent $8 so far. And that's what the negative means, not minus. See the language I'm saying? That's negative because it tells you the direction, the value. Minus is an operation. It tells you which, like, do you lose or do you gain? And because here I was minusing, that's why we went to the left. Okay? We're minusing. That's the difference between the two. One's a minus, one's a negative. Cool? All right. So what we just did there, A, B, and C are examples of 1F. That at bare minimum is a fluency skill that you need to know for this exercise. And how well you know it is how I'm going to look at your exercises, and that's how I know. Okay? This question here, technically it's a 1E. It's funny enough that once you train this, a lot of students then forget how to do 1E. So -11 minus 6 is meant to be easier. Yeah, it is. -17. Very good, -17, because you are currently on a number line at -11. You start off at -11, which is over here. So that's 0, -11's on the left. You started here. And then we said minus. So you're losing. You're not gaining, this is losing. You're losing another 6. So lose, I'm going left, more direction to the left. I'm going an extra 6 this direction. So 11 going down 6 that way. Obviously I have to be a negative. And 11 plus 6 gives you 17. So right here, you can write here pretty much minus 17 if you like. Sometimes you could break it up if you like as well. This is another way. This is a bit controversial. Don't have to do it this way, but I'll show you another way. Sometimes students prefer gaining. Like the plus seems to be easier for them. Another way of writing this is losing is the same thing as gaining debt. So you can actually say -11 plus a -6 if that helps you understand it. So you owe $11. Now you're gaining another debt. So in total, how much do you have technically or owe? -11 with another 6. That means it's -17 that you owe in total. So this language could help you understand better if you prefer the gaining negative, but it's fine to write your answers -17 at this point. Now notice my layout. In your exercise books and in your homework, what I don't want to see is this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see 1A, 7, 1B, -8, 1C, 6. Because this, in 6 months' time, if I asked you to flick through your exercise book and you get back to this and I'm like, what was that question about? You can't say anything to me. But in 6 months' time, if you had it like this, problem, method, answer, you can revise. If I made a test, let's say a mid-year exam, like for the year 9s, for example, year 8s don't have an exam. But my year 9s, without the proper layout, if they do it this way, by the time they revise, think about it, how many chapters you do in year 9 by mid-year? It's about 6. 6 chapters worth that they look through all this work means nothing to them. But 6 chapters worth of something like this, you can revise. You can quickly go through and go, oh yeah, I already know this. Move on. That's the difference between those who study well and those who don't. Because layout matters in mathematics. This is what I'm looking for. If I don't see that, if I see this, I'm going to cross it off and tell you do it again. Okay, because you wasted your time. You wasted my time and your time. Okay, so I want to see this because then I can see your vertical layout, your entry, what's your problem, what's your method to your answer. Your method could even be just a number line. The point is, you have a way, 6 months' time, you can revise. If you have a problem with that, if your parents have a problem, they can talk to me as well. But I never had a parent who didn't understand my logic. Because as soon as I explained to them about revision and preparation for tests and exams from year 9, 10, 11, 12, everyone gets it. Because the ones that are lack in preparation, which is layout, organization, are always the ones that do worse. That's just how it is. The more organized you are, the more layout and the methodical you are, which is what maths is about, critical thinking, that's the first step. At a junior level 7 and 8, this is what I'm training you to do. So that's why I wanted you to half your page, okay, fold it in half or rule it in half, because it forces you to work vertically. That's what I want to see. Cool? That's my lesson for today. That's exercise 1E we did last week. This is 1F to add on top. For those who are feeling game, you can try this. I'm going to write the solutions up for this one. This is the end of your fluency at sort of like problem solving-ish, like intro to problem solving. But I'm going to write the answers for these ones so you can see. But that's it for today's lesson. You can now work on 1E or 1F, up to you where you're up to. Whatever you don't finish is homework.
Wait, so if we haven't finished 1E, but we want to go to 1F, we still have to do homework for 1E?
Yeah. So you can start on 1F, and then whatever bits left that you can do for 1E, then you can go back to 1E later. Remember, you don't have to finish all questions, just fluency sections minimum. All right, I'm going to